I showed up to WordPress.org, like, how can I get involved and help build this thing?
Then you went ahead and launched kind of a competitor.
I didn't think it was a good idea. I thought no one wants another blogging platform. So I wrote a blog post, what if something like Ghost existed? And I just kind of put it together as a concept page, and that took off. It went crazy.
My natural urge is to just install WordPress. Why would I use Ghost?
Fast as yeah.
You should put this on your homepage.
We're attempting to bring the business model of Netflix and Apple Music and Spotify to journalism so that they can do it in a sustainable way. If you can fix journalism back to what it was intended to be, not just clickbait and outrage, only good things can come from that.
Do you look at Quora at all for like any inspiration of those things?
No, Quora is, in my view, like one of the saddest places on the internet where happiness goes to die.
Fediverse and ActivityPub. Let's put it in the most layman's terms possible.
What Fediverse allows is for two-way interaction. You can respond, you can like, you can interact. It brings the community piece into the subscription.
Where does it exist, the community piece?
In whatever app you use.
So the reason why it doesn't sit well with me, there are actually two reasons.
Ahrefs Podcast.
So, you like on your LinkedIn, I saw that you were deputy head of design at WordPress. First of all, what does it mean? Deputy head of design, and you were there for like 2 years?
Yeah, 2-3 years. So WordPress is made by a group of open source contributors that get together online and essentially volunteer to build the software. And it's one of the amazing things about WordPress is it's created just by people on the internet getting together and building stuff. And so 2009 or whenever it was, I showed up to WordPress.org as a designer and trying to think like, how can I get involved and help build this thing? And they had just set up this user interface working group. So a call for designers to kind of come and help out and contribute to WordPress. And it was a very small group, but I contributed a lot. And after, I can't remember, maybe 3 months or 6 months, I got assigned the responsibility of being the deputy head of UI, which essentially means the person who's in charge of wrangling everything that was going on in the group and all the other contributors and getting the design work we were doing into Core and with some front-end development. Wasn't a huge, role or title or anything, but it was a lot of fun. So
still, WordPress, it's open source. Like, sorry for all the stupid questions. I'm not familiar with many of the topics which we're going to go into, but you said basically there's a group of people who are working on open source software for free. They're not getting paid.
Yeah.
But still WordPress is owned by Automatic, but by some company. So when you were deputy head of design, it's like an employee. So you were getting paid.
No, I was not getting paid. No.
You were not getting paid?
No.
So who appointed you as deputy head of design?
The head of design, who was employed at the time by Automatic. So WordPress has multiple sides to it. You have the open source project, which is WordPress.org, and then you have a venture-backed company called Automatic that runs WordPress.com. And Automatic has a large number of people who contribute to WordPress, and a lot of them in senior positions, but there's also people in senior positions who are just volunteers. And then the majority of people who work on WordPress are volunteers, like the significant majority.
So you were essentially doing this for free?
Yeah. And at the same time, I was freelancing and I had my own client base. I was building a lot of blogs and publications for larger companies like Microsoft, Nokia, Virgin Atlantic. And that's where my income was coming from. So I figured as a freelancer, if I could be a core contributor to WordPress and intimately familiar with the software, it would be a competitive advantage for me to be able to sell my services as a freelancer to build sites for them, which turned out to be true. It was very helpful. And so the type and the size of clients I got as a result of being a WordPress core team member was significantly improved. So it was, I was very passionate about WordPress and the open source side of things, but the initial interest was business decision. It was like, this seems like a useful thing for me to do for my work.
Okay, that's interesting, because I thought you were an employee at the company, and basically then you went ahead and launched kind of a competitor. So walk me through that. You were a contributor to WordPress. You were kind of involved in what's happening at WordPress as much as kind of a person can be at this point. and you decided to start Ghost, which is like you describe it on your homepage as independent publishing platform, right? But can I call it a CMS? Just
sure.
Like WordPress is a CMS, essentially. Ghost is a CMS. So why you decided to start Ghost when there is WordPress and you were working with it, you were using it for your clients? So why start something completely from scratch? Something might have infuriated you a lot about WordPress or something. What kind of pain were you trying to solve?
Yeah, a few. So I was involved in WordPress from around 2.9 to 3.2. Those release cycles.
Doesn't tell me anything.
Doesn't tell you anything. For people who know WordPress, it was a pretty long time ago. We're up to version, I think, 6.6 now.
Okay.
So I was involved through a handful of major releases. And at the time, it was right around the point at which WordPress was really transitioning from being a blogging platform to being a generalized CMS. It was when they started using the phrase WordPress wants to be the operating system for the web. It was when they introduced custom post types, custom menus, custom taxonomies. There was a lot of movement at that point in the product's life to get away from this label that it had, which was, WordPress is just a blogging platform. And that was like an insult. Nobody liked that. They're like, no, WordPress can do so much more. You can use it for everything. And all the features that got introduced around that point in WordPress's history were kind of to prove that it can do much more than be just a blogging platform. But my clients at the time and my interests were really just in the blogging side. I was blogging for a bunch of web design blogs. The companies that were hiring me, they were wanting to build blogs. The blogging and the publishing was what I was most interested in. And after a number of years of contributing to WordPress, sometimes more, sometimes less, there were definitely some frustrations I had with the product overall. But in general, I had this thought stuck in my head of what would WordPress look like if you got rid of all the technical debt of it being kind of old and clunky, and you just focused on one use case. Instead of like, we want to solve every single use case, e-commerce, social networking, blogging, publishing, portfolios, real estate, marketplaces, and just focus on one, the original one, publishing. I wonder what that would look like. And I talked to a few of my friends who are also on the WordPress core team about it, and they were like, yeah, a lot of people have had this idea, but no one ever does anything about it. And so it started as an idea that I thought was bad. I didn't think it was a good idea. I thought no one wants another blogging platform. There are already like tons. But I wrote this blog post about it just to get it out of my head. So I wrote a blog post, what if something like Ghost existed? And I just kind of put it together as a concept page. And that took off. It went crazy.
So again, maybe I missed something while I was thinking of all other topics that we're going to discuss, but what was in that blog post? What is the kind of the main idea behind Ghost? Yeah, I got it. Like WordPress was like, software needs to evolve still, right? So they were a blogging platform, and then a lot of people started using it to launch entire websites, e-commerce websites, and adding like all sorts of plugins, so anything. And I would imagine WordPress were happy to kind of expand their use cases. But still, like you say, a lot of people just want it for the blog. For example, Ahrefs, we have our entire website is custom made, like all the landing pages and everything. But our blog is running on WordPress. Because conventionally, if you want to run a blog, the kind of easiest way, or at least that is what it has been like 10 years ago when Ahrefs launched the blog, was to just install WordPress and you have a blog, and there are lots of templates, blah, blah, blah. So Ghost, what you said, you published a blog post, it got viral on Hacker News, or got a lot of traction on Hacker News, people supported it. I think you also mentioned that from that blog post, you got 30,000 email subscribers who wanted to, like, you mentioned something along the lines, if you're interested in my progress, if I ever do anything with this idea, sign up, and 30,000 people sign up. So what did you hook them with? What was the promise?
Well, the H1 on the page was Ghost, just a blogging platform. And so it was playing with that idea of the label that WordPress didn't want anymore to be just a blogging platform is exactly the label that Ghost did want. And the focus of a single use case was one of the big pulls. And then the page kind of went on to make a pitch about why the products should exist and what it should do. And focus was one of the ideas. But the business model and how it would be set up was another one, which was to use one modern technology as much as possible. The original idea was actually to fork WordPress and improve it, but eventually we decided that would be a bad idea. It would be much easier to start over. But more importantly, to set it up as a nonprofit organization that would be solely focused on the product. So not have this venture capital backed big company in the background trying to make $1 billion, but purely focus on what if you just made the best product you could for the users and not anything else. And that drove a lot of interest. That drove a lot of curiosity from people.
Okay, you opened a rabbit hole with this non-profit keyword. I thought we can talk about it later, but it seems that a big part of interest from people in you launching Ghost was the fact that it would be A, non-profit, B, open source.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you think that if you would strip those two things and just say, like you said, Ghost just a blogging platform, it would attract an equal amount of interest?
No, definitely not. I think every new company or product needs some kind of hook. You need some kind of reason that people should pay attention. You know, if it's just another product in the same market, in the same space, and your idea is it's just a little bit better, you know, you have to prove it, and people are not really going to pay attention until you do. Most launches that work well are companies and products that have a new angle. They have some kind of something that's different. And sometimes it's a philosophy, sometimes it's a feature, sometimes it's a business model or a structure. But almost always it's something that's fundamentally different to what currently exists in a way that makes people go, oh, that's interesting. And to the extent that that's successful or not depends on how well the difference resonates with people and how much the pain is felt by other people if you're solving for a pain point.
I still want to discuss the non-profit thing and the open source thing later, but I'm still trying to understand. So I want to launch a blog.
Yeah.
Because I've been in this industry for quite a while and I used WordPress for quite a while, and I know that there are a lot of developers that can help me customize it. There are tons of themes that I can use, like premium ones, free ones, cheap ones, etc. There are lots of plugins. It's quite a versatile platform. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you say, there seems to be quite a bit of technical debt, and it might not be optimized for like speed and blah, blah, blah. But so let's discuss two very specific cases. So I have my personal website, teamsolo.com. Mm-hmm. Right now it's just like a one-pager listing some of my photos, author bio, some of the podcast interviews I've done. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking to add a blog to it. And of course, my natural urge is to just install WordPress. Pitch me Ghost. Why would I use Ghost?
I mean, you're quite a specific case. You probably have, it's difficult to think about exactly the things that you care most about. But
I just care about publishing my articles on my personal blog. It can be as easy as syndicating. So for example, I write something for Ahrefs blog, but I want to have a central place where all the articles by Team Solo can be stored. Yeah. And it's naturally my website, teamsolo.com. Yeah. So I just need, like you said, just a blogging platform. And WordPress seems to be an easy one because even my hosting, I can install it with one click. Yeah. And I have WordPress. But why would I use Ghost?
It's going to be easier to use in your day-to-day workflow. It's going to be a lot faster for performance. And I guess probably what would overlap most with your interests is it's a lot better for SEO, typically. And rather than needing a lot of configuration with additional plugins to get the kind of usual SEO optimized pieces that you need for WordPress that it does not have out of the box, Ghost has all of that built in.
For example?
Automatic XML sitemaps, automatic site structures that are optimized around internal linking, kind of everything that the Yoast plugin does out of the box before you start getting into the premium features it has is exactly what we built in. And honestly, like early on, copied most of in the early versions of Ghost. There's some things where we also moved ahead quite significantly. We did JSON LD structured data and all that kind of stuff in the head long before the Yoast plugin did. So we've had a strong focus on that. One of the best case studies we ever did was when we migrated the Buffer blog from WordPress to Ghost. And actually, I have like one of my favorite screenshots is Ahrefs dashboard, and you just see the chart go like absolute hockey stick up in terms of the total rankings. So that we've seen work really well for people. But if you have a background in using WordPress, I think the thing you notice the most is the speed and the ease of use in admin. Setting up a site is something you do once, and then you have to live with it. The admin interface. So like how fast is it to get around? What is the editor like? What is the writing experience like? Are you fighting a block-based editor that has 800 buttons every time you try and do something? Or do you have a relaxed experience where you can actually think as you're creating content? And then, we have newer things built in that are very specific to publishing that are not what WordPress is focused on. So we have email subscriptions built in. You can collect newsletter signups. You can send your blog posts as newsletters. At the same time you publish, you can deliver the new post to all your subscribers. And something that might not be something you would use, but we have a lot of people using now is premium subscriptions and payments and paywalls built in around content. So people who are earning a full-time living from their blogs and their publications, which again is integrated with the newsletters and the content and turning an audience into a business.
Mm-hmm. You said you migrated Buffer's blog to Ghost. So like I said, Ahrefs' own blog is on WordPress.
Yep.
I cannot see us moving to anything else because you understand it's like the larger company grows, and the more you invested in some platform, the less you want to move, as long as it's kind of working. So there should be a very compelling reason if we wanted to move. But yeah, I agree with you. The actual editor in WordPress, well, to be fair, I didn't touch it for quite a few years now. I just send my drafts to our content team.
You've gotten too big, Tim. You need to start writing blog posts again.
No, I do write them. It's just I send my Google document to the team, and they upload it. Upload it for me. Yeah. So, but yeah, I would love to consider moving Ahrefs blog to something else if there is a big enough reason to do so.
I mean, Buffer had hundreds of thousands of keywords that they were ranking for, right? It was not a small decision for them to move over. And their performance went up dramatically in terms of the amount of traffic, in terms of the search rankings. But they had one, particularly at the time they moved, one of the larger blogs in the entire marketing world in terms of it's definitely something that's working, but they felt that there was more potential there. And there was more they could get out of it. And it's one of the areas where we don't do a lot of marketing, but we are a very common choice for new companies setting up blogs now. Typically, the conversation goes something like the marketing team wants to have a blog. They talk to the engineering team. The engineering team says you can use anything except for WordPress and PHP. We're not touching that. How about you use Ghost? And then we're in the mix. So, I mean, you can go on our site and see all the companies that are using Ghost.
That's quite an impressive list.
There's a lot of them.
Quite an impressive list. Okay, so what would be the most the fact that Buffer moved their blog from WordPress to you, and their traffic went up?
The single biggest difference before and after was performance, by far. And it would be easy to take all of the credit for that with Ghost, but the reality is your performance is massively, massively dictated by the theme layer, whether that's the theme layer in WordPress or the theme layer in Ghost. WordPress does some other things that don't help. Its database queries are a real bottleneck. But general benchmarks of performance, Ghost to WordPress is one of the areas where there's the biggest general advantage. We serve on average, well, it might be different now, but the last time we benchmarked it was 19 to 1 requests in the same amount of time. So that means Ghost will serve 19 different visitors content in the time it takes WordPress to serve one visitor the content. And search over the last 10 years, as you know, has become more and more focused on performance and has rewarded fast performing sites. across desktop and mobile more and more. And that's an area where Ghost has done really well.
So in layman's terms,
yeah,
when you say performance, it's essentially page load speed.
Fast as fuck, yeah.
You should put this on your homepage.
Layman's terms, yeah, H1 at the top.
I'm not sure if like the structure of your company allows you to use these kinds of headlines on your homepage.
It kind of does. The bottom of our homepage says "No investors, no bullshit." So it's not 100 miles away from.
Well, given that I'm not a native speaker, I don't know what kind of weight the word bullshit really has. Because for me, any curse word that is not in Russian or Ukrainian is not as strong as the one in my native language. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, let's discuss the recommendation system, because you mentioned that, and I probably quoting, the recommendation system we built in Ghost is based on an open web standard and always keeps double opt-in enabled to prevent spam. So open web standard, is this the Fediverse / ActivityPub thing?
We have a couple of different projects around open standards. ActivityPub, Fediverse is one of them. Our recommendation system is another. They're based on two different web standards. And both are in the same general space of trying to connect the indie web, trying to get people who operate their own independent websites to be able to know each other exist and talk to each other, like the good old days of the blogosphere that you might remember from 2008 and before.
So how does the recommendation system works for the end user, not the technical details, for the end user? So again, let's consider that on my personal website, I've used Ghost. And I'm just I'm not worried about SEO traffic. I just want like a central hub for all my writing.
Yeah.
And I'm just taking, by the way, do you have a canonical tag? So I can just say that the article on my personal website is canonical to the one I wrote for Ahrefs blog, because I believe in ranking with that article better than with my own website. Okay. So I'm using it on my own website. How do I leverage recommendation? How does it work?
Yeah. Recommendations feature at its base is just a blog roll. It's just a collection of links. So you have friends who also write blogs. You link to their sites, and a list of links on your site appears. That's the simple basis of the feature, which is not really a feature, right? That's what people have been doing on the internet for 20 plus years. So it's like, how is this a feature? What is recommendations? Where it gets slightly more interesting is where you pop that list. So where you show it up in the user's journey on your site. So let's say someone visits your site, they subscribe to your newsletter. In the process of subscribing to your newsletter, they can be presented with, would you also like to subscribe to these other 5 sites? If those other sites are running on Ghost, it's a one-click subscribe. So it's like a follow button. Just go subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Done. You don't need to go to and visit another site or make any of that work. If the site is running on some other platform that doesn't support the same feature, then it's just a link, and then they open it. What happens in the background is we fire off requests, which are web mentions. So web mention is an open standard that allows you essentially to send notifications between 2 sites. So if I mention you, I'll send a notification to your site to let you know, hey, I wrote a post where I mentioned you in some way. And so our recommendation system is built on top of that. So if I start recommending you, you will get a notification saying, hey, John started recommending you. You should basically expect that you're going to get some new signups because I'm sending you traffic. And if you're using Ghost in your dashboard, you'll see account stats, how many people came from me, from my recommendation to you. And the same in reverse, if you were to recommend me back. You can see if you are recommending other people, you can see the stats of how many people you're sending them. And if you're receiving recommendations, you can see the stats of how successful that is, how many people are sending you new subscribers. So the idea is to have some cross-pollination between publishers who are maybe friends, who have similar audiences or who have an overlap in audiences, where they can say like, hey, if you like my stuff, you might like my friend's stuff too, and see whether or not that's actually working, see the impact of it.
Is it actually working?
Yeah.
Do you have some global stats on the performance of this feature?
No, and that's one of the things I'm happy about is that I don't have an answer to that, because Ghost is decentralized. Because it's decentralized means every single site is a copy of the app. It has its own database, its own application that runs independently. There's no mix of user data. So we don't have any data on the open source sites that are self-hosted. And even of the sites we host, they're all spread across so many databases that it's not impossible, but it's prohibitively difficult to go and find out. But on an individual site level, sure, we can see if it's working. And from talking to customers, we hear that it's working. But this feature is relatively common now. There's several platforms that have something that's similar or the same. What's slightly different about ours is, like you said, it's built on an open standard. So where several platforms have built a recommendation feature within their own network, you can recommend people as long as they use the same platform. The benefit of using web mentions is that ghost sites and ghost publishers can recommend anyone, someone on WordPress, someone on any other platform, and it will still work. And if those platforms want to also use web mentions, even the notifications back and forth will still work as if it's a native feature.
First of all, as you were saying that there's no centralized way to get this data, you should try to get it manually, because it's a cool statistic. Basically, what you could do is reach out to like a few hundred of those websites, and like you can bucket them by industry or by their size, and get some aggregate data from them. This I often mention this case. It's one of the last articles I wrote for my personal blog before going full-time on Ahrefs. I wanted to know how much referral traffic bloggers get from their guest articles.
Yeah.
So I reached out, I don't remember, maybe 500 different bloggers, and asked them to give me either access to their Google Analytics or just look up in Google Analytics on their few latest guest posts that they did, how much referral traffic it sent them. And they got around 200 responses. And they did a study, and the number was 54 on average, 54 visits from a guest article. Of course, this was not the best executed study, because I could group those websites, because some websites are bigger, some smaller. Sure. So the average number is not very meaningful. But yeah, I think it's an interesting statistic to know what amount of those recommendations and subscribers this feature is bringing to your customers. And again, to put it somewhere, I know, on your homepage, on your promo materials, or even when you advertise the actual recommendation feature, just attach how it works for different websites in different industries. I think it could be good. But you said that when a ghost website mentions someone, they get some kind of notification whether they are running Ghost themselves or WordPress.
If they support it. So we will send a request, a web mention ping, to any site. And if they are set up to receive that notification, have a way of displaying it, it'll work. So anyone can build support and interoperability if they want. And some systems have. Okay.
Because I was thinking Ahrefs blog is fairly big. But I don't remember receiving any of those mentions. That's because we don't have support for it. So
correct. And on WordPress, there's probably a plugin you can install for web mentions that would allow you to see.
So it could be that people are pinging us, but we don't know about this.
Yeah, pretty high chance that's happening.
Okay, and on Ghost, this is built in. So once I install my Ghost blog, and people mention any of my writing, I will receive those notifications.
Correct.
And I can opt out to not receive them if I don't want to be bothered.
Sure. Yeah, you don't have to use the recommendation feature or the notifications. Yeah.
As well as I can opt out from sending them if I don't want.
Yeah, you don't have to recommend anyone if you don't want to.
Okay. So, and again, I'm trying to understand how would someone recommend my blog on Ghost if they're not linking to me directly. So because it's one thing, like you said, if people would do this in a conventional way, you're writing an article, you want to reference someone else's work, you link to them, that's a natural recommendation. It's not in any way kind of system driven. It's not kind of algorithmic or something.
Yeah.
But if I understood you correctly, probably I didn't understand you at all. You said people would get the email after following someone's blog. They would get an email, here are similar blogs to follow. Is it?
Yeah, that's how the recommendations feature works. The web mention standard can be implemented in lots of ways. So it depends what your platform does. So you could have a platform which, let's say you write a blog post, you link to 3 people. As you publish, your platform goes through your post, looks for all the links, and then sends a ping to each one of those URLs and says, hey, Tim mentioned you. Hey, Tim mentioned you. Hey, Tim mentioned you. That's a different implementation.
But that's not recommendation.
No, that's not what we've built. But that's also something you can do with web mentions that people have done.
Yeah. But again, I'm trying to understand how using Ghost can help me passively increase my audience. Or I think ConvertKit recently introduced something where you can pay to be advertised in other people's email newsletters or something and gain followers this way.
Yeah.
So I didn't look into it, but the way I think it works is that basically you pick a niche, whether it is, I don't know, productivity, wellness, blah, 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 that your website belongs to. You pay money, and all the people who are sending newsletter in that industry for their websites, your website automatically appears in their newsletters as kind of a sponsored ad, and you gain followers this way. And I think I saw people on Reddit complaining that it's not double opt-in or something like this.
Yeah, there's a lot of platforms that are doing recommendations features that they are using to boost their stats. Some of them because they're just they charge money by how many subscribers you have. So if you have more subscribers, they charge you more money. Others because they've raised a lot of venture capital and they need to show numbers going up and to the right in order to raise more venture capital. So what's one of the best ways you can make numbers go up? Turn off double opt-in. Oh, suddenly everyone got a lot of subscribers. It's super easy to get tons of subscribers. Just turn off any spam prevention at all, and there's definitely some of that within this market that a lot of games are getting played around these things. So something we talk to publishers about a lot is optimizing for quality more than quantity. Sure, you can pay 10 cents to go and advertise in some different newsletters, 10 cents per subscriber. Are the subscribers you get from that going to be really high quality? Do the publishers that you're advertising with have an incentive to game that system? Yeah. There's a lot of growth hacks that are hacks, and the hack part is what you should take away from it, not the growth part. And we try and shy away from that. We've always lent towards building features and building our products in a way that achieves much slower growth, but much more stable, much more real growth. There's rarely a case where we have had some giant spam influx or people realize like, oh, none of this is really real. Whereas there's a lot of platforms out there who have had blog posts where they say things like, oh, it turns out we've been double counting all our stats for the last checks notes 3 years. It's like, oh, interesting. Okay. We try and shy away from those games as much as possible, but they happen. There's a lot of that stuff happening.
Let me try to reframe my questions. The question in regards to recommendations. So, the way I see WordPress, again, maybe I can be way off with the terms and their definitions, but WordPress is not a platform in a sense that individual WordPress installations are not connected in any way. Yeah. Like Twitter accounts or even like publications or blogs on Medium, etc. These are kind of standalone instances. So you're on your own. That's essentially right. The platform is not helping you in any way. Yeah. So what I'm asking you about in terms of those recommendations is what is the value of using the Ghost platform in a sense, does the network effect, basically. Is there any network effect built in? And again, what I'm the example, if you follow a Ghost blog or Ghost publication and it automatically recommends you some popular publications that are running on Ghost within the same industry, this is kind of a network effect that I'm talking about. So do you have, like, first of all, did I understand this correctly, that this is how it works? Yeah. Second question, do you have any other kind of passive ways to get exposure that are built into the Ghost, like as a platform, using the network effect of people using the platform? Yes, there's a couple. We have a directory, we call it the Explore directory, where we kind of list people using Ghost and then rank them by a simple algorithm that's a combination of how much traffic they get, how many... how much traffic the directory gets. How
many subscribers they have, how much revenue they have. People can choose how much or how little to share, but it's a great place to go and find other people using Ghost and see who the top publishers are.
How much traffic this directory gets?
The directory, millions. It's our second most highest trafficked page other than the homepage. Yeah. Some of that is driven because you can access the directory from inside Ghost, inside the product, as well as on our website. So there's more reasons or ways to find it. But it's an unbelievable amount of traffic, like a really surprising amount.
Whoa. Because I was asking this question trying to kind of jab you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
the reason behind it is because we have a directory of SEO agencies at Ahrefs. We launched it, I think, 4, maybe 5 years ago. It was supposed to be kind of an SEO programmatic play.
Yeah.
When you search for SEO agencies London, SEO agencies Great Britain, SEO agencies, Australia, and for each location, as long as we have a listing where someone listed their SEO agency in this location,
you should rank.
We would have a page with all the SEO agencies in our directory. But then first of all, we didn't put as much resources as we should have into this project because it's quite a big thing. Like there are standalone companies that do just that, like listing of different companies, different businesses. And then we also limited the access to this directory to only our enterprise accounts, which are not in thousands. Yeah. And for the programmatic SEO thing to work, you need thousands, better if hundreds of thousands of pages.
Yeah.
And the source of traffic to this directory should have been search, SEO.
Yeah.
As long as there are lots of listings, we cover lots of destinations. So there's like a lot of long tail search traffic from people around the world looking for SEO agencies in that location. The only place where this SEO agencies directory is mentioned on our website, I think if I'm not mistaken, is in the footer of our homepage, plus a bunch of other landing pages where we have the same footer.
Yeah.
So the direct traffic that we're sending to it from our own website is very, very low. Yeah. So when I saw this directory on your website, and it is featured more prominently because it's in your top menu, but still I was quite skeptical. But now that you say that it is integrated also in your product, so all the people that are using their Ghost accounts daily or weekly or whatever, they might check out like what is happening in terms of popularity of publications, or do you feature any like top articles of the week, or what is the reason of people going there so often?
I think it's a mix of things. There's definitely people use it for inspiration. So if you're a Ghost user, you might want to go and find out who else is publishing in my niche, who else is publishing with Ghost in general, how many subscribers do they have, who's making a lot of revenue, go and look at who, when they are making a lot of revenue, what are they doing, what tactics are they using. So I think there's, in the same way, bootstrappers use indie hackers to get inspiration, see what other people are doing. I think there's definitely some of that.
Wait, is revenue numbers public?
You can optionally, publishers can share them if they want to. So when they add themselves to the directory, we scrape all their data, and then we say, do you want to share subscriber count? Do you want to share revenue? And then we say, if you do share these, we're going to rank you higher in the directory. So there's an incentive to do so. And that generates good inspiration for people already using Ghost. It also generates really good proof that the platform works for people who are thinking about signing up for Ghost, and they're like wanting some evidence that it actually works in reality, right? So if they can see who is doing well with it, who has a lot of subscribers, who has a lot of revenue, that helps with conversion.
Interesting. I didn't expect that your directory has this much attention from your audience.
Yeah.
This is very cool. And this is for individual publishers, individual contributors, and even for not individual, but companies, it is a good incentive to sign up, because like I said, it gives you the benefit of the network effect of the platform.
Yeah.
Which you don't get with WordPress.
Yeah. And we don't pull out individual stories to your other question yet, because it's a little more complicated to do, but that's next. That's kind of next on our list. And that starts to overlap with, so your other question was, what are the other network effects, right? We're now getting into ActivityPub and the Fediverse with Ghost. And that's where I think these kind of three pieces are going to come together: the Explore directory, the recommendations and web mentions, and this ActivityPub piece. Is going to start to give us the ability for decentralized sites, independent websites that exist on the internet, to be able to talk to each other, to be able to follow, respond, like, comment, do all those things in a way that is the same as if you were on Medium, the same as if you were on Tumblr, the same as if you were on some centralized platform that can do these things easily.
Wait a little bit with the Fediverse. That's another rabbit hole which I want to...
That's a big one.
That's a big one, and it's easy to dive too deep in it. So before we go there, I also wanted to discuss Medium a little bit, because I do have some experience with Medium, and I have a friend who runs a content marketing agency.
Yeah.
And I think he used to be the most popular author on Medium, to the point where Medium team was reaching out to him and like collaborating, blah, blah, blah. But I published, I think, 20 articles on Medium, and there were at least 2 ways that I remember how Medium was helping my content to get discovered. One of them is that Medium has this concept of publications, which means you can publish your own personal blog, but you can also syndicate your article to a publication, which is essentially a collection of articles of other people under the umbrella of kind of one brand name. And my friend is running, I think he's still running the publication called The Startup on Medium. I believe it used to be the #1 by the amount of subscribers to it.
Cool.
Maybe still is. I don't know. So when I was syndicating my content to his publication, it was getting tens of thousands of reads.
Yeah.
And just from syndicating, because people follow those publications.
Sure.
And then as a publication, he also had an opportunity to send emails to whoever follows the publication, which gives another boost of people visiting your article, because he was creating, I think maybe once a month, he was creating like the best articles from this month or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the one thing, which is kind of UGC content moderation or content curation, or UGC editorial team, whatever you call them. And then there was editorial team of Medium itself, because they have homepage, and they structure their homepage kind of like, I know, a news outlet, how BBC or New York Times or whatever, BuzzFeed or whatever websites are popular would do. And they would find and feature the best articles of the week, of the month. They would have a ranking there. And I would imagine Medium's homepage is getting visited by who knows how many hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of people. So that's, and I think my friend was telling me that whenever his article was featured on the front page of Medium, he was getting tons of traffic to it.
Yeah.
Am I missing something about Medium? Do they have any other ways of leveraging the network effect or leveraging the platform effect?
I think they have all the same features of your usual networks, which is so the features you mentioned, and also when you follow someone, they can recommend that post to their followers. You see something in your feed, there's some version of, if you comment on it, then the people who follow you might see your comment on another post and therefore discover another author that way. And the usual likes and lists of likes, things like that. But no, I think you covered the main bases.
Are you going to do anything along these lines? You are, because you said you want to create content as well. But do you want to do this algorithmically, or are you planning to have an editorial team? Because as far as I know, Medium has an editorial team taking care of this. They have like editor speaks and all those things.
Yeah, I think we might surface. So there's kind of a front end and a back end question, right? So it's what we do in Ghost Admin, which is Ghost publishers to Ghost publishers, but it's not public on the internet. And then there's what we show on our website. So at the moment, it's like the Explore directory. We might surface some kind of editors' picks, top content of the week, stuff that's pretty human driven in there. But I don't think we're going to go for a full two-sided play. So Medium is trying to build its product both for readers and for writers.
Yeah.
So it wants traffic. It wants people to come and read the articles. We don't really care about the reader side. That's for the publishers. They have their own site. They are the ones who are creating content for readers. We are creating a product for publishers, which is a slightly different way around. It's also it's very challenging to have algorithmically curated content across lots of different sites and surface it in a way where you maintain quality. As soon as you create one of those things, it's like a magnet for spam, right? You build something where if an article is featured there, you're going to get a lot of traffic from it. Suddenly everyone wants to get their article featured there. And often for things that you probably don't want to promote. And so the amount of engineering and human hours that go into making those things safe and not a complete PR disaster is very significant. And in a decentralized environment, it's kind of even harder to control that because you don't have access to all the databases and all the tools which you would normally use to help control quality.
Quick detour, Quora. Do you look at Quora at all for like any inspiration of those things about content, network effects?
No, Quora's become an AI hellhole where like everything goes to die. I'm at the point now where I've banned Quora from search results because when I accidentally click on Quora, I get so angry that it like ruins my day.
Yeah.
Because you know the snippet on Google is always like exactly the fucking answer to your question. It's like the answer to your question is ... And it's like, well, maybe half the sentence, like 23 per, and you're like, fuck, yes, this is what I want. And you click on it, and suddenly it's AI generated answers to other questions. No, Quora is, in my view, like one of the saddest places on the internet where happiness goes to die. So no inspiration there at all. It's like what not to do, I think. To create something interesting and then let it languish, but slowly kill it with more and more growth hacking features and AI bullshit.
That would be an amazing snippet for social networks that Quora would be super happy about.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be stoked about it. I feel sorry for anyone who has to work on that poor damaged product because it's, oh God, it's just a sad farm.
Okay, same question about Medium. Do you think they are going in the right direction or they lost their kind of vision?
I don't know. Medium's a complicated one. Ev Williams made Medium. Ev Williams also made Twitter. Ev Williams also made blogger.com many years before that. So Ev has a long history of making wildly popular publishing products that everyone uses, but no one can really figure out how to turn into a business. That's been his thing he's done a lot of times, and Medium's no exception. So while he was there, he's not there anymore. You know, they pivoted 8 or 9 times to try and figure out how to turn this into a business. These days, it's run by a guy called Tony, who's the new CEO, who is one of their top users. And it's no longer trying to be, a traditional San Francisco startup, take over the world. They've calmed down a bit. They've calmed down and they seem to just be serving publishers in the best way they can. So I think in the past, they were really trying to build like the Netflix of content, and they didn't quite manage to do that now. Didn't quite manage to do that then. And now it seems like they're still trying to be the Netflix of content, but the ambitions of what that means have been scaled back to a point where they're making it sustainable rather than growth at all costs. And I think that's good. I think it's in a better place now than it used to be, but it's certainly not at the center of cultural conversation like it used to be. You know, there was a point in time where everyone had a Medium. Barack Obama would publish a post on a Medium. That doesn't really happen anymore. It's not at the same point in cultural history that it used to be, but I think it's an okay product. I think it's doing reasonably well. I'm not sure where it's going next, but it's one we see come up.
Medium is a competitor for Ghost.
Yeah, used to be a significant one. These days, not as much.
Why?
I think a lot of the interest has moved on. For the most part, there's other platforms that people are now typically comparing us to more often. It's not that frequent that we hear about people choosing between Ghost and Medium anymore. They're usually choosing between Ghost and various other options.
But Medium, does it still allow you to run a blog on your own website? So can I use Medium to run teamsolo.com/blog?
I'm not sure. I know they turned custom domains on and off a few times, and I'm not sure what it is, the status is now. But I think the bigger issue now is Medium has quite an aggressive paywall that they put over all your content.
Yeah.
So I think that pushed away a lot of the casual publishers.
And you cannot choose like where you want to display this paywall and where you don't.
I don't think so. My impression is that it's applied to general internet traffic. So if you, as not a Medium user, go on Google and there's a Medium result, you get 2 free stories per month or whatever it is, and then you're going to get hit with the paywall. But I don't know if that's 100% correct. I'm not. You'd have to ask them. They might have some nuance around how it works.
But that's already a big downside if I cannot self-host that blog.
On your own domain, you mean?
Yeah, that's already a downside. And I think I saw an argument from someone that the big downside of Medium is their branding. So when someone is reading an article on Medium, they're reading an article on Medium.
Yeah.
They're not reading an article from John or Tim. They're reading a Medium article. So kind of the value of the author of the article gets diluted a little bit.
And that's the case with every social network, centralized platform. Their branding is dominant.
Yeah, and basically here's where the whole recommendations thing is detrimental, because when people are browsing your own publication with recommendations of your own articles, it's one thing. You keep them interested within kind of your platform, so to say. But when they're somewhere like Medium and they're reading your article, the next article they might be reading is not from you, and they might not stumble upon article from you anytime soon because of all those recommendations. So here are the top articles of this, here are the top articles of that. So in a way, yeah, Medium does help with discovery, but it might not be very good in locking a person to your content only.
Yes, that's true. And the more concerning version of that I think a lot of people don't think about as much as they should is that with any of these platforms, publishing platforms that have an email feature, and the platform is free, and you can import your email list, what happens is you decide to start using that platform. So you go and get your publication set up, you import your email list. So maybe you import 100,000 person email list, which you've built up over 10 years. These people are your audience members you've fought hard for. If you import that list to somewhere like Substack, maybe Medium, maybe some of these other platforms, suddenly they're getting weekly emails from Substack or from the platform recommending all this other content from all these other publishers, because the platform's goal is not for you to be the only person who has a relationship with your readers. They want your readers to subscribe to as many Substacks as possible. So the craziest thing in my mind for larger publishers who use these platforms is that they are bringing an audience that they give away for free to a platform that is intending to monetize them and that is actively monetizing them to not share that revenue with the publishers and bringing the audience in. And that's something that happens constantly, all the time. But it's amazing what the allure of a free platform can do, right? Like send emails to unlimited people for free that's a strong pull.
That is a very good consideration. But back to, like you said, Medium is not so much a competitor for you. It's not what people are considering against Ghost at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Who are your kind of biggest competitors?
Yeah, the biggest one, Substack, for sure. People talk about a lot. WordPress comes up when it's larger publications, for sure. More recently, Beehive's quite a noisy, newer startup.
Beehive? I haven't even heard of it.
Who else? Patreon on the creator side is an interesting one. So we kind of have a mix of new media and traditional media publishers. So traditional media, kind of more news and journalism. New media, you could say anything from podcasts to YouTubers to bloggers. And on the new media side, the closest competitor we have is Patreon, for sure. There's YouTubers who are maybe setting up a private members area where you can have premium subscriptions. And podcasters doing the same, and even some writers and a lot of artists and people like that. And Patreon takes, I think, 12 or more % of all that revenue, and it's closed platform. Again, the branding is all Patreons. If Patreon is trying to sell all of your audience on more Patreons, so there's probably like the most common ones we get compared to.
Who are your customers, and what is their kind of business model. So if we were to draw a pie chart, we already discussed that, for example, there are people like me who just want a personal self-hosted blog. Ideally for free, because let's say I'm not making any money from it. Then you have like companies like Ahrefs. We want to move our blog away from WordPress because of the performance, because of the better editor, ease of use, yada, yada, yada. Then you say you have people who need a platform that would allow them to charge membership fees. So they would have some content for free, some content for members only who are paying them. And then there are some publications that are making money out of advertising revenue, or maybe, I don't know, affiliate partnerships or sponsorships or whatever. Basically, they're monetizing their content, not via people paying them, but via advertising something within the content. So can you walk me through your customer base and what percentage of them fall into each bucket? And maybe I didn't mention some buckets, some large buckets, because I'm sure there are like lots of types of little customers who have this and that use case, but the general picture, how does it look like? For sure.
Yeah. You touched on one of our main marketing challenges, which I think is true for any publishing platform, is there's so many different people that use it for so many different things. Often it's quite difficult to pitch the product in a way that resonates with all of them. Because if you start saying it's, for journalism, there's a bunch of people who don't like journalism, and that's a big turnoff for them. If you start saying it's for new media creators, the journalists are all like, oh, this is not a serious product, so I'm not going to use it. So that's one of our challenges, the sheer number of different people who use it in different ways for different purposes. You touched on all the big groups, I think. The two that we focus the most on is how people using Ghost for news and journalism, particularly local news, and people using it for what I would call new media, so like the creator economy. Those are the two biggest segments by quite a long way. And then the third, it's kind of there are three big ones, and the third one is businesses doing content marketing. There's a long tail of hobbyist bloggers, personal bloggers, but not nearly as many. People who are just publishing on the internet as a hobby, there's the ones who are passionate about technology, and they might choose Ghost because they just like it and that's an interest of theirs. But if this is what Medium's original thesis was, is if you just publish once a year or twice a year, and you probably don't want to run a whole platform, you probably don't need all these advanced features, you probably just want a text box you can go and type into, and it's going to appear on the internet and you have a link to it. So that's a smaller number for us. Often is developers, because the product is open source, it attracts the developers who are interested in the tech that's behind the blog they're using.
In terms of your product development, as of today, which group are you focusing on with the new features and developments? Because I would imagine that people who are focused on having membership, one thing they want for sure is different ways to charge their members for different things, different tiers. I want to be charged, weekly, monthly. I want to have some additional things. I don't even know, because I'm not one of them, but I'm sure there are a lot of feature requests. But for example, people who just wanted to publish content as a publication, they would be more interested, for example, in the editor itself and what it allows them to do, how it allows them to present their content. For example, I really like the Medium's feature that the highlights, that they show me how many people highlighted a piece, like 22 people made this highlight. As an author, as someone who publishes content, this gives a pretty decent dopamine hit, knowing that, okay, I said this phrase.
I said something clever. People liked it. Yeah,
exactly. So I wonder, what are your top priorities in terms of product right now, and which customer profile do you want to appeal to in terms of your product, let's say until the end of the year?
Yeah, news and journalism is kind of our long-term focus, what we are really passionate about, particularly local news and serving communities. Why we get out of bed in the morning is making technology that can benefit media and journalism in some way. It feels like if you can fix journalism back to what it was intended to be, serving communities, helping them, informing them, not just clickbait and outrage, but actually giving people useful information that brings communities closer together. Only good things can come from that. And in order to do that, you need journalism to have a sustainable business model. They need to be able to do work and continue to do work and make money from it. And what we've had over the last 20 years is an erosion of the business model of journalism. As Google and Facebook have taken all of the advertising dollars, media has lost all of its money. And in a desperate attempts to hold on to what revenue they did have, they did the things that work on the internet, which is clickbait, which is outrage, which is getting people upset because then they're going to comment. And if they comment, then the algorithms are going to reward it. And what we've done for ourselves is we've created a dystopian society where the worst parts of human tendencies are the things that algorithms reward. And even whilst doing all of those things, traffic has gone down, advertising dollars have continued to go down, and we've ended up in a worse place as a result of it. Now, there is something that is working and that is showing real signs of being different to that, and that is having subscriptions, which is what newsletters had when they were newspapers. And having a direct connection to an audience so that when you're publishing, you're not thinking about how do I get the most traffic, because that's what gets revenue. You're thinking about how do I make sure I'm serving this audience, because if I don't do a good job and they are not happy with the quality of this reporting, they will cancel their subscription. And so the very simple answer is we're attempting to bring the business model of Netflix and Apple Music and Spotify and SaaS to journalism so that they can do it in a sustainable way. So they can have a community that they are serving and being funded by simultaneously. And it's a very simple, small business model, not a giant play for a giant media conglomerate. I'm not sure if we're ever going to have the size of media companies that we had in the late 90s ever again, but I think it's possible to have a long tail of smaller, really good independent media companies. And I'm super passionate about that. Our team's really passionate about that. And I think that spans, what we would think of today as journalism across through to some of the new creators. I think there's a lot of debate about, is MKBHD, the YouTuber, is he a journalist or not? And some people say, absolutely, yes, he is. This is what new media looks like. And other people say, no, he's not upholding the standards of what a journalism is. And these YouTubers, they're not following the rules. And I think the answer is some mix of the two. And the world is going to continue to evolve. But a sustainable business model is critical to having high quality publishing and high quality journalism. And so that's what we think about a lot. And we think about our features through that lens in terms of trying to find ways in which we can help fund more independent journalism. So one of the milestones or benchmarks we use around product development is we try and think about what features we can create or what things we can do to help independent publishers reach $60,000 a year. That's the point at which we see people go from having a side project with a blog or a publication or whatever they're doing on the internet to thinking about doing it full time. And the higher the number of independent publishers that can exist and fund their work, the better. And so that's kind of where we optimize around the most. And it's quite diverse in terms of the type of people it ends up being for. But it's quite effective getting the product team organized around a specific goal.
As you were talking about this MKBHD, basically tech reviewer, right? And people not willing to call him a journalist, it made me think, first of all, why do people care if he's a journalist or not? But then I think something I realized, and I may be completely wrong about this, but it seems that on YouTube, people often use the word creator.
Yeah.
So as long as you create and publish something, you're a creator. And the bigger audience, the more views, the more attention you can get, the more kind of solid creator you are.
Yep.
So let's kind of stick with this definition that I just came up with. So how is this different as a journalist? I think the way that creator is defined, or like how I would define it right now, it's a person who is able to attract a lot of audience, a lot of attention. So their main goal is to attract a big audience and monetize this. this is what most YouTubers are doing. Again, Mr. Beast, largest hell audience. He's monetizing it with ads and now with his own products like Feastables and such. How is it different from journalism? Journalists, they do want an audience.
Mm-hmm.
They do want to monetize it because you do want to get paid for your work. But I guess the primary reason behind journalism is pushing an agenda. Because essentially, it seems like creator would do anything to get the views. It doesn't matter. Well, of course, it's probably limited by some, philosophical, political, or your moral compass or whatever. But essentially, whatever is popular, I'll jump on it. I'll talk about it. I'll get the views. I'll get the audience. I'll convert that to money somehow. With journalism, you have a message to say, which might not be popular, and you want to get it out there, and you want people to learn about this. And it's much harder when your opinion is not clickbait. It's not something people want to engage with, but it's something important for them. It's like kind of like the pill you need to take to be healthier. It's not a cake. You're not enjoying it. Some medicine, but you need it. So I guess, am I in the right ballpark of journalism versus just being a creator?
Yeah, I think you're in exactly the right ballpark of where the controversy or the disagreement is. So I can tell you, the intent of journalism and the difference to creators is of integrity. The idea of journalism is that you have reporting that is true and that is not influenced by external factors. So in traditional news organizations, you would have, I think they used to call it a Chinese wall. Maybe now they call it a firewall in between the business side of the organization and the reporting side of the organization. And the reason that exists is so that advertisers, in theory, should not influence the review score that a product gets.
Yeah.
And so literally the reporters do not talk to the people in sales, and they don't even have a relationship sometimes to try and keep those lines and sides of business very separate. And in the past, historically, there's been great pride in that integrity and maintaining that integrity, and it has been one of the cornerstones of what good journalism is. And so the argument about creators is they do all this sponsored content, they don't tell anyone. Suddenly you have a great review for a new product and, hey guys, here's my unboxing. No disclosure that they got paid $30,000 to make this video, or $300,000 or $3 million.
And completely forgetting about all the downsides of the product.
Oh yeah, they don't exist. This is the best product I've ever used. And so the criticisms are usually some version of that, creators do not have the same journalistic integrity around how they present content. And there are certain risks and downsides that are associated with that. Product reviews are an easy one. What other reviews and views can you buy? That's where it can start getting into interesting places. Now, I think the flip side of that, there's other sides to that argument, and there's questions that should be asked of modern journalism around how much integrity do they have these days? And are they doing enough really to uphold the same values that they promote? And I think most people outside of media, if you ask them that question, would say they're not doing enough. And journalism is not in the best state it has been in. So I think there's arguments in both directions, but I don't remember how we got onto this topic now. It's definitely
Ahrefs podcast. We're solving the world's biggest problems.
But we have both audiences, and that can be interesting from a product point of view, because they are sometimes in conflict with the things they want, and we have to try and build something that serves both of them.
So now that you mentioned, let's say one of the goals of Ghost as a company to empower journalism, and you even said it quite specifically that you want journalists to be able to make upwards of 60K per year from their writing.
Yep.
So back to product. What kind of feature requests you get from journalists, publishers that would help them, or what kind of features do you have in mind that would be helping them to get broader audience, publish better content, yada, yada, yada?
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. we have no shortage of feature requests, that's for sure. One of the interesting things, I think...
what are some killer features that you shipped recently in that regard? And maybe something you can tease?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that's top of mind at the moment that's in progress, okay, let's start with something we shipped recently because it's faster and easier to talk about. We've just done internal linking for Ghost, which is something that's been super high on our requested features list for a long time. So essentially now you can highlight any piece of text in any post, and when you click on the link icon, first we'll show you all your recent posts, and then you can search for any post in line and link to it. Either in 3 clicks or in typing like 2 characters, which is, it's the same thing that's in Notion or in most of these document platforms, but we haven't had it in Ghost for a long time. For publishers, it's a game changer if you're doing, even for SEO purposes, internal linking is a good thing. Having a solid flow of links going through your site is a good thing. And now it's really easy. And it's a super well implemented feature. The product team absolutely killed it. And then something we're working on right now, if you're going to let me talk about the Fediverse now.
Okay,
we can go on the rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
Is having Ghost sites be networked and part of this larger ActivityPub network, which we sometimes call the Fediverse, and allow people to distribute content and interact with other publishers. And in terms of growth and in terms of the potential for the audience you can reach with an independent website, I'm super excited about it. It's going to be a very big project. We're 3 months in, we've probably got a year and 3 months to go to get to the basics of it. But
so I first heard the words Fediverse and ActivityPub while I was listening some of your past interviews while preparing for this podcast. Okay. I think some of the people watching or listening to this are hearing those words for the first time.
Yeah.
Again, let's put it in the most layman's terms possible. This reminds me of the kind of old idea of blockchain, where, for example, you would buy some, sword in some game, and then you can take the sword with you to another game because it is like all interconnected. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were discussing with someone that kind of you own your audience on one platform and you can transfer that audience to another platform. You said, if you go from Twitter to LinkedIn, you have to be building your audience from scratch. And with something like Fediverse, you can just instantly have your audience on another platform. So the reason why it doesn't sit well with me, there are actually 2 reasons.
Here we go.
First of all, I think every platform is very specific in what it expects from you. So I can be quite popular on LinkedIn, but I think it's unfair to move all that audience to YouTube. Because while people might be enjoying some rants I'm posting on LinkedIn, my YouTube content should be awful, can be awful. But maybe this can solve with kind of double opt-in thing or something. So I'm not even sure if it's fair to even notify people that, Tim, who you're following on LinkedIn, just launched a YouTube channel. So this is the first thing. The second thing, I forgot. So let's discuss the first. No, I just remembered it. I believe in the concept of being known. And I think if you are very successful on one platform, it means you are known. People know you for something. People respect you. You have, some personal brand or whatever.
Sure.
Which means that whatever next platform you pick up, you're not starting from scratch. And the quick argument in favor of that is that when a popular person, let's take someone popular in the marketing space, Rand Fishkin, who me and you know well, when Threads launched and people started registering their accounts on Threads, Rand Fishkin immediately had the biggest following there. Out of everyone else from the marketing. And it was kind of proportional to the following that those people had on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or YouTube, etc. So I think you're not starting from scratch, because if people know you, they would naturally find you and stick with you or not. But yeah, tell me where I'm wrong in all of that.
You're not wrong, but I think you are missing some pieces, which is fun and interesting to talk about. So fundamentally, ActivityPub is just a technology that allows you to follow, like, respond in a decentralized way. So that means an independent website can follow, like, reply, communicate with another independent website. So the experience that people have had on twitter.com or Tumblr or Medium, where you can follow people and reply and interact, that has been limited to social networks, to a single platform, a single company, a single network that owns and operates it. So we're familiar with social networks, but only in the context ever of one company, one website that you go to interact with it. What ActivityPub unlocks is the ability for that to span multiple different companies, multiple different networks. And the best comparison, or the best example of where we have something similar today, is email, right? If you use Gmail, you can email people who are on Gmail, but you can also email people who are using a different company on Hey or Fastmail or ProtonMail.
Okay.
Email is a protocol that spans multiple different companies, but the base technology is very, very good because it's not controlled by any one company. The web is similar. We have multiple browsers, but everything works fundamentally with HTML and CSS. So ActivityPub is the same thing for social networking. And where it has, in my view, the two biggest benefits is in the opportunity to choose, to be able to build your own brand, and you're on your own website.
Let's be more specific. Give me an example.
So you could set up a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And you could grow a big audience there.
No, first of all, only if YouTube will join the ActivityPub thing.
No, just today. You could set up one option you have. Let's say you want to start a new video-based publication.
Yeah.
And you want to grow an audience. You could go to YouTube, you could set up a big publication, and let's say millions of followers.
Mm-hmm.
And one day YouTube could turn around and say, our algorithm does not like you anymore.
Yeah.
You're done. No more views for you. Your
Okay.
traffic's gone. So now you've invested, let's say 2-3 years, building this big audience on someone else's platform. They've changed the rules, and suddenly all your investment has gone away.
Not all, as I just made the point, but okay.
Okay, a large portion,
Yeah.
should we say. And you can, with your great reputation, go to another platform and start all over, and maybe you'll have some kind of head start. But you're building on quicksand. And, there's been some great examples of this. One of the better examples is Upworthy on Facebook. Upworthy built this media company based on feel-good stories. And one day Facebook said, no more traffic for you, and Upworthy pretty much went away. An alternative is you build your own website. What's the downside of a website right now? There's no built-in mechanism of following and liking, interacting, so it doesn't attract as many people. But if your website was networked in the same way that YouTube is networked, if people could discover you through your own website, then you would always be in charge of your own website. You're in charge of your domain. You're in charge of the content.
You're still talking in some concepts that I struggle to put into specific cases. This is why I asked, can you give me an example of, like, you go to a website, you read an article, and there's a button that says this, and once you click it, this happens. So how this should work? Okay, I have an audience on YouTube, let's say 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Something happens, YouTube bans my account.
Yeah.
Let's say YouTube is part of Fediverse or Activity Hub. So what happens?
Well, it's not that I'm imagining YouTube would be part of ActivityPub. It's more that you could build an independent website instead of being on YouTube, and you could still grow
I have an independent
audience.
website on Ghost. I have my subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghost is now part of Fediverse.
Yeah.
So what?
So everyone within the ActivityPub network across multiple products and platforms can follow you and subscribe to you, like your content, comment on it, interact with it in a way that they could not before. At the moment, the only way someone could subscribe to an independent website is either through RSS, which is not used super widely anymore, or email. And both of those are good, but there's no social features. There's no way to comment or like or interact with anyone. It's a one-way broadcast. You receive content, you can read it, end of story. What Fediverse allows is for two-way interaction. You can respond, you can like, you can interact. It brings the community piece into the subscription.
Where does it exist, the community piece?
In whatever app you use. And so you can, like, in whatever...
No, I'm going to your website, for example, which is running on Ghost. Yeah. I'm leaving a comment. So
then it depends what you want to do. If you
I struggle to understand it. You're like...
at a base level, let's say you know nothing about ActivityPub, you know nothing about Fediverse, you have no pre-existing
But I shouldn't.
connection.
I'm an end user.
That's what we're starting. Well, there's different types of end users. But
I would imagine this is the feature that should be used by broad audiences.
Yeah. These things.
So like things like Twitter and YouTube, leaving a comment, a like, subscribe, everyone gets it.
Sure.
So when I go to a ghost website, which is connected to Fediverse ActivityPub, and they do something, there should be some consequence that is related to Fediverse and ActivityPub. What is it? What happens?
I don't know.
What does it change for me as not as a publisher, but for me as a user, as someone who connects with those websites?
It depends who you are as a user. It really does. It should not be for everyone.
I'm Tim.
Okay. So you, Tim, signing up for a website, your experience by default will not be any different. It will be exactly the same. You will sign up for an account, you can log in, you can comment, you can see other people who are on that website and commenting.
How would I see them? Is the website should...
Yeah, the website's showing the comments. Like, not a huge difference to how a website with comments works today, right?
But the website owner should make kind of a conscious decision that I want a widget that displays everyone else who's on the website or something.
Just the same as comments now on a blog post.
But then what's the difference? It kind of like, now as you say it kind of reminds me of Discuss. The comment section that is also kind of, that is, how to say, the same thing on a lot of websites. So you only register there once.
Yeah.
And then suddenly every website that implements Discuss comment section, it has the same, like you are already logged in, your profile is already there. You maybe have some, some reputation, some information about you, who you are, how many comments you left.
Yeah.
So basically it is a sort of like a platform which you in a way embed or integrate to your website, and people, like, the whole interaction exists within those platforms. But then again, if I click on someone's profile picture in the comment section, I get redirected to Discuss website, where I can see which websites they have engaged with, which comments they left. Kind of like Reddit, but instead of subreddits, it is spread across different websites.
See, you do get it.
But that's Discuss. Why Fediverse?
Because it's open for everyone. It's an open standard. So rather than one company with one product that everyone has to use, otherwise they can't participate, it's just open. Imagine if email was only Gmail. It would be very different. It would be a very different setup. The benefit of email, why Fediverse and why email is essentially the same question, is because not one company controls it. Anyone can build a product around it. And so as a website visitor, you could, click on someone's profile and discover it. But the more interesting thing is, what other products do you use? Because if you use Mastodon or a different ActivityPub products, where you already have a concept of, I have this inbox, and this inbox is where I get my content, or this feed. And so when I subscribe to this ghost site, for example, I don't want it in my email. That's my email inbox. I want it in where I read the rest of my content. I want it in a feed, and it could be a Mastodon feed. It could be something else. You could subscribe with that address and see it all in one place. That's when it starts to get interesting. But different users will have different experiences of it. People use email in different ways as well. Some people use it aggressively for newsletters. Some people use it for mailing lists and groups. Maybe not so much anymore. Other people use it exclusively for work. I think Gen Z doesn't use it at all. There's different interactions that people have with types of communication protocols, and that's fundamentally a good thing. You want it to be weird and different. The web is weird and different, right? If you say, what is a website? I can't answer that question. They're all different.
So you see, when I made my comparison with Discuss, you said that I'm kind of getting it because it would be the same but decentralized and whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't, where is Discuss right now?
What do you mean?
Are they doing well? I don't think so.
Definitely not, no.
They had their up, and now they're down, and I don't think they're getting back anytime soon. So I don't seem like, first of all, still I cannot get it. I don't see the value for me as a user. I don't see much value for me as a publisher. I'm just not getting it. And if I were among the people getting Fediverse, I would be concerned about someone like me who's been in the industry for so long not getting it.
Yeah.
Either you guys are unable to properly explain it, frame it, or give proper examples, or maybe I'm stupid. I don't know.
No, we're definitely in the blockchain phase of this.
So would it be fair to say that you're still figuring it out?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
But this is the thing with decentralized technologies is they are chaotic and they evolve. They are not designed and brought into the world. When a company decides to build a product, you typically have one person who has an idea, and then they say, "This is what we're building," and they build it clearly and consciously, and it's pretty easy to understand from the get-go. But when you have a chaotic group of individuals all over the world with different priorities and different interests, trying to build this, decentralized something or other, it takes a while to figure out what that is. Usually over time, we get there. The internet early on was like, what's that? You're surfing? What does surfing mean? On the computer? Why would you do that? And early days of the internet, no one understood why you would put something online. Oh, you put your real name on the internet? You use a credit card? What are you doing? What is this for? This is insane. Now look at us. We understand what the internet is because it evolved. Same with encryption. GPG, PGP, very confusing. Signal messenger? Simple. WhatsApp, simple. They're based on the same underlying technologies, but we have a much longer cycle to figure out how are people really going to use this and how are they going to understand it, because you have not a company running it. You just have a bunch of volunteers all over the world trying to build something cool. And it takes a while to figure out what's going to catch on and what's not. And there's ActivityPubs definitely in that sphere. We're in the early adopter stage.
Are you not worried that you will waste a lot of time and not figure it out?
No, you got to take risks, man. You got to try stuff. And it's so philosophically aligned with what we do, giving independence and control back to individuals instead of to giant platforms. And it, on a personal level, that's what the web needs right now. I'm so bored of big fucking companies driving everything. Let's have small companies. Let's have individuals. Let's have 1,000 SMBs instead of one giant.
But that's the thing. What kind of additional, power or control do you give to Mr. Beast to be able to thrive outside of YouTube?
Oh, it's not about Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is going to be just fine. It's about...
No. YouTube, how to say it? I struggle to put what I mean in words, but your success on a platform is it very much depends on the platform. So Mr. Beast figured YouTube specifically.
Yes.
So if YouTube bans him today and says no YouTube for you at all, for example, he would need to go to Netflix, and it's a completely different game. And he might not end up being the best at Netflix. He's the best at YouTube. He figured this specific platform, and this specific platform has rewarded it because he played by the rules of the platform. So if he's banned from this platform, he'll have to find another platform with big audience, with big distribution engines, that recommendation engines and that thing, and he will have to figure out how to become the best on this platform. And becoming the best on Netflix is nothing like becoming the best on YouTube, because the level of production and the level of ideas and the level of expertise that Mr. Beast has with his videos against some viral Netflix series, name anything, Game of Thrones. How much writing, what kind of team, what kind of, costumes, acting, script writing, yada, yada, yada goes into it. He's not on this level. And will he ever get to this level? We don't know. So this is why I think that in a way we should be thankful to platforms that they kind of allow us to get this audience, to play by the rules and to become the best and get all this. So I struggle to express my thoughts, but maybe there is something in what I just said.
I think Mr. Beast is probably a good example of what you were saying earlier, and he would not go back to zero, you know? Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, but
so he says, I'm Mr. Beast, people are probably going to follow him. Yeah. He's probably not going to go to Netflix. He's probably going to go to TikTok. And the skills he learned from YouTube are going to be very transferable to TikTok.
But he might not be the best TikToker.
He might not be the best TikToker. But then the question for me that comes up, and it's kind of a tangent, unrelated to the point we were coming from previously, is do we think Mr. Beast content is the best content that we want to see more of in the world?
No, not necessarily.
No, but he cracked the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah.
So what we have at the moment is a market where content creators aren't thinking about, what do I love? What do I think there should be more of in the world, whether it's art or music or writing or poetry? They're thinking, what is going to work in the algorithm? What is going to get me the likes on Instagram? What is going to get YouTube to put me on the trending page? And they are shaping content to algorithms. So we're getting this genre of content, which is algorithmically driven rather than creatively driven. And I don't love it. I don't think it's like where we get the best ideas to move humanity forward or society forward or anything, or just art forward, is by playing to how do we get the most clicks or the most engagement in an algorithm. And so I think to the extent that platforms can do things differently, the more we can get away from one platform's definition of good content being the ruling definition of success and failure is a good thing. I think if there's multiple ways to succeed rather than just whatever Twitter's algorithm says is good, which is going to be a Thinkfluencer horseshit thread about here's the 3 trends in AI that you need to know this week, or YouTube's definition, which is I gave $100,000 to a person holding a fish. I think we need more of that. I think we need more diversity of algorithm, and I think ActivityPub has more potential for how that can be the case with more companies involved and less platforms having total say over the winners and the losers.
Okay, we'll see about ActivityPub, but yeah, this conversation.
You're not convinced, but I'll come back to you in a year or something.
Yeah, please do. But yeah, I don't want to continue this line of conversation because it's getting too complicated and philosophical.
You're so Ukrainian sometimes. I do not want to continue. You've bored me to tears. Let us move on.
I like talking about things that I understand, and I am progressively losing understanding of what we're talking about. So let's talk about building a media company, which is kind of something you want to help publishers to do. And let's, again, to be as specific as possible, let's discuss something like TechCrunch.
Sure.
So would you say that TechCrunch is a media company?
Yeah.
But then again, when you discuss that some article is on TechCrunch, you don't really pay attention much who wrote it. You're like, TechCrunch published this, TechCrunch published that. But if I wanted to start a competitor to TechCrunch, how to do it? Because like the way I understand this, you launch a website, you publish some, let's say, a review of some company of what you think about Ghost. So here are my opinions of Ghost based on talking to John O'Nolan for 2 hours. Like a piece of journalism. Well, more or less.
Yeah.
But still, how do I get traffic to it? I need to tap into those platforms. I need to go post on Twitter and somehow get distribution on Twitter. I need to post on LinkedIn. I need to ask you to do it, like to your own following. I maybe need to tap into TikTok, because where people hang out is those platforms. Internet is quite limited to a few most popular websites. It's like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Again, I think if people would just look at their daily or weekly habits and how much time they spend on some websites, it's dominated by just a few. So if you want to get audience, you still have to tap into those networks.
For sure. Marketing.
Yeah. But then when those people come to you, you have to turn them into your audience. And right now, the kind of not only two ways to do it, but one, you can ask them for their email to keep in touch with them. Second is what I just explained, is just your reputation. Yep. If people enjoyed your content so much that they, who wrote this? It's Tim. Yep. Okay, whenever I see something, I will not necessarily follow him right now, but next time something from Tim shows up in my feed anywhere, I might be more attentive to like what he's saying, because I enjoyed this piece a lot. I'm just observing my own habits. This happens to me whenever I see, like recently I discovered for myself Ed Zitron, I think his name. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, he uses Ghost.
Yeah, he uses Ghost. Yeah, he has some like brilliant writing, and I'm following him. Anyway, this is a tangent. So it seems that to build a media company, you still have to play by the rules of those networks to get people to yourself. And those people won't even stick to you that much, because still their preference is to go to those big networks every day, to open their Facebook, to open their LinkedIn, to open their Twitter, YouTube. So it seems that the best way to have a media company is to figure out distribution on these platforms.
I think the best way to have any company is to figure out distribution, right? And it just looks different depending on the business and the audience you want. If you're starting a business for a consumer market, you figure out how to do advertising. That's to say, that's also distribution. That's also getting your brand in front of people who haven't heard of it before. So I think there's always some version of you go outside where you currently are to try and find new people who are going to be interested in what you're doing. And the current way of the world, especially for us in software and in media, is you go on social networks, and they rise and fall. Some are popular at different times, and you change your strategy based on which ones are working most. Search is obviously another one. There's already people now trying to optimize their content for AI, so that when it's getting AI models are getting trained, they're more likely.
We don't have time to talk about AI.
Yeah, but whatever. There's trends in distribution channels, right? And people will always have to find which ones to make work for them.
So you should know your top publishers fairly well. Mm-hmm. And you should probably have an idea of what worked for them and why they are top publishers, why they have a large audience.
Yeah.
So can you name some traits or some things that the top publishers do that make them top publishers? First of all is, of course, you have to publish something people care about.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, like, how do you get to the top? How do you become a top publisher? How do you become an established media company?
Yeah, I think there's a range of different possible answers, but the most successful publishers almost always are doing something unique. They're doing something different to everyone else. Where I think the fastest route to not success is to do the same thing everyone else is doing, because that's already been done. That's already saturated. There's already someone, if you go and copy MKBHD's videos one-to-one, same camera, same studio, no one's subscribing, because that's not what it's about. It's about the quality of content over time and doing something different, having a unique take. And your unique take is going to be different to someone else's. And what we see the best publishers do is they care about quality a lot. They have a unique angle on something. And then the very best ones almost always augment that with relationships. And for journalists, that might be relationships with people who are sources of news. And for maybe newer media creators, it's often relationships with partners, could be other creators, or relationships with brands who they're then working together with to come up with cool content to work around. Casey Neistat's like quite a good example of that. I think those are two pretty big predictors of success. I see a huge number of publishers, creators, even SaaS business people get lost in, we've got to go crazy with a custom website and growth hacking and this weird strategy and that weird strategy. Almost anything to procrastinate from building the business, creating the content. Like for SaaS people, building the product, and for content people, writing the content. But the best predictor of success in publishing, for sure, is the quality of the content and the differentiation.
Do you think that blogging is losing its mind share in people's heads compared to the likes of YouTube content on social networks, and maybe formats like podcasting? Because in our content marketing department at Ahrefs, we have discussed on a bunch of occasions. We have some skeptical views that people are not that interested in reading articles as they want to watch videos, listen to podcasts, scroll TikTok, etc. And Sam, our head of YouTube, was specifically kind of making a point that our YouTube channel gets a much bigger reach right now than our blog with published content, while our video team, like the number of people who work on video content, is smaller. He was kind of making an argument, if this channel is working so good for us, why don't we invest more manpower and make it even bigger, while we're increasing manpower on the publishing side, on the content side. And because Google has been very greedy with traffic, it's not growing as well as the growth we're getting on YouTube. So what do you feel about that? Or maybe we're looking in the wrong direction. Maybe we're in our own bubble, because like I said, I do read articles quite often. Just yesterday, I maybe read 3 or 4 of them in just one day. So I do read articles, but it seems that I discover articles in a different way. It's not that I Google for them, but I still discover them on social net. But yes, what do you think about like people reading articles versus any other types of content?
I think people have predicted the death of blogging more times than they've done most
I'm not talking about death. I'm not talking about death.
I understand.
Like losing popularity.
It's just, I think it goes in cycles, and formats and their popularity go in cycles. Video is definitely up there right now, right? I think the publishers that do the best almost always have a mix of formats. They're almost always across multiple mediums, and the best ones find a way to pull those mediums together. And so when I think about what is a blog, I think more about the website. And if the website can pull together a combination of audio, video, and text, I think that's usually the best combination, because you're going to reach different people a lot of the time. There's the audience on YouTube is not the same as the audience that's on Apple Podcasts, is not the same as the audience that is in Google search results. And people learn differently. If you're talking about learning content, people consume news differently. I think the best overall is kind of a mix of the above, but there's a big place for writing. It depends who you're trying to reach. If your target market is older and more professional, there's a much higher chance of reaching them through writing than through TikTok, that's for sure. And that's probably the widest spectrum, and then there's answers everywhere in the middle. But I think they're all good. I like podcasts. I love YouTube videos. I love great articles. I love good newsletters. I like short tweets or threads posts that make me think or make me laugh or make me interested. I think there's opportunity and intrigue in all of them.
Would it be fair to say that compared to 10 or 15 years ago, when blogging was the kind of way to go, what changed is that, first of all, 15 years ago, we didn't have things like podcasts. YouTube didn't have much variety of content, so to say. There was no TikTok. Twitter only allowed, 140 characters. LinkedIn as a social network, like in terms of sharing content, didn't exist. So it's naturally that there was a large diversification of attention. So other formats did eat some of the market share from blogging. That's one. And the second one, the barrier to entry to starting a blog has become almost zero. You can easily start a blog. A variety of platforms exist. They're super user friendly, etc. So the number of blogs is very high, which means there's just a lot of noise.
Oh yeah.
And it's harder to stand out, because your general expectation of an average article these days is quite low. But there are really hidden gems or jumps, how to pronounce it correctly, of journalists and publishers and writers.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Okay, we have a little bit of time left. Let's talk a little bit about your marketing. How big is your marketing team? What kind of channels do you use?
Yeah, marketing team's one.
Okay,
and
is it you or
no? It's not me. It's me and one. Me and one more, and we barely do anything. Essentially, almost 100% of our growth is word of mouth. We have a referral program that does a little bit, drives a little bit of growth.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little bit of SEO for some comparison pages, but almost all of our growth, by and large, comes from existing users talking about us or people finding out about Ghost through seeing a small link in a footer of someone's website and getting curious.
This is impressive. And this very much reminds me of the time when I joined Ahrefs, when Dmitry, our CEO and founder, he told me that we have product that is kind of 5 out of 5, but our marketing is like maybe 2 out of 5 at best.
Yeah, that's probably where we are right now.
And given the success that Ahrefs had with marketing, because it was so easy for me, given that the product is 5 out of 5,
yeah,
it was so easy for me to market it, because essentially you just had to point people at it, like, look, it's awesome. And they were like, oh yeah, it's actually awesome.
Yeah.
So given that you have only one person doing marketing and you didn't do much and still you were growing quite significantly and grown to quite a significant size. So you said today Ghost has earned over 25 million from customers for 0% equity. Is that 25 million through the entire course of its existence, or?
Yeah, I think that was a couple of years ago, but we're at 7.5 million a year revenue.
7.5 million a year.
Recurring. Yeah.
Okay. The marketing section was shorter than I thought.
Well, it's a difficult one for me because we have a 5 out of 5 products. I would say it's a point of pride for us is the quality of our products, but we also have very aggressive and pretty effective competitors. That it's for us, it's never as simple as just saying, look, here's the product, and them going like, oh yeah, I'll sign up immediately. There's a big switching cost with any CMS decision. That's tough. And there's a lot of funding in the space that drives economies of scale that are not sustainable. Making everything free, even though it's losing millions of dollars a month. We're bootstrapped. We can't do that. We have to be profitable. Otherwise we don't exist anymore. And it's not a product category that people really search for, right? No one's searching for what's the best publishing platform. It's something people talk to each other about and find out about.
But I think we discussed yesterday that your kind of marketing channel could be thought leadership in the publishing space, like some of the things we were discussing today.
Yeah.
Like helping publishers to be...
So you're saying we should start a blog?
Yeah, you have a little bit of expertise there. You're running a platform. Okay. You are not building a personal brand, from what I can see. You're not.
Yeah, not much.
Why? Do you not have time for it? Is it not your thing?
It's difficult. The Ghost's success in launching was kind of based off me building up a Twitter following.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, as Ghost has gotten bigger and had more attention and had bigger people using it, I've shied away more and more from the personal branding side of things because it's just become more and more scary. In 2019, I had like a really big doxing and hack attempt on me that was terrifying and spanned more people in my life than just me.
Whoa.
At the same time, it feels like the risk to reward ratio of building a personal brand has shifted over the last 5-6 years. The number of people who are willing to get angry with you is a lot higher than it was in the early days of the social web, where it was all kind of, hey, what are you working on?
Yeah,
cool, me too. So I don't know. And then there's another piece where I don't necessarily want the entire company to be about me. I want it to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. I want people to know the brand, but not necessarily need to associate it with just the founder behind it, or the 2 founders and early team behind it. What's interesting about Ahrefs is I don't think I know what Dmitry looks like. I don't think I've ever heard an interview with him. I don't think I've ever even read a quote by him. I know who you are very well. I've seen videos of you. I've read blog posts written by you, tweets by you, keynotes. And so I think both is possible, right? You can have a very...
Yeah, I'm not saying that... the question was why you are not building a personal brand, but the question behind that is that it's good to have someone in the company who can kind of act as a face, because people do want to hear from other people behind this company. Like, this is a common knowledge at this point.
And I think what you're getting at is that we don't do that enough, and we probably should. And I think I agree with that. Haven't figured out how to do it well yet. I need a Tim of Ghost. Do you have a brother or a sister?
The thing is, Dmitry is generally not. He's not the same kind of character as I am.
Yeah,
I'm more outgoing. He's more introverted. So it's not his thing. He's not enjoying. I'm enjoying a lot, like being in public, talking to people. Blah blah. It's not his thing naturally.
Yeah.
This is why he doesn't do it. People should do what comes naturally to them and what they enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Your personality is different from Dmitry's personality, from what I can tell. And from this conversation, you're quite natural at like talking, expressing your thoughts in a nice way, squeezing in some jokes, which is why I think the easiest way to use the kind of personal brand channel for Ghost is to start with you. And then if you will hire a marketer who is also willing to put themselves out there, of course they can like take over this role, and you can post less, get out there less, and they will do it more. It's just the actual channel of having kind of company champion, company advocate. I think it's very effective. It's just most of the time it's founder, because founder has like their word has most weight.
Yeah.
Because back when Twitter was giving us more engagement than it's giving today, Dmitry had 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times less followers than I did. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like a significant difference. And he wouldn't tweet very often. He would tweet only like when something important and he needs to say it publicly.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that it would be quite often that Dmitry, with his much smaller audience than me, would get more engagement and more reach on his tweets than I would, because he's the freaking founder and CEO. And like whenever he says something, people want to listen. And I'm saying something all the time, so people can just scroll past it. So this is why I think it's very powerful when a founder can do. And like the lower you are in organization, the less would people listen to you, unfortunately. So
there's a time component there as well, right? Like a lot of the conversations like this often involve the history of the company and where it came from, and the origin and the ideas. And I have the stories. I have the stories that go with that. And the longer you've been with the company, the more stories like that you have. But it takes time to build that up.
Non-profit. So I guess my question would be different from most of them.
I have a feeling I'm going to confuse you again already.
No, this is why I'm not going there. Can you switch from non-profit to a profit?
Yeah, OpenAI did it.
Okay, so basically the fact that Ghost is non-profit today doesn't mean that next year it's not going to reorganize and become a for-profit organization.
It would be naive to say no, because OpenAI has done an amazing job of proving exactly how possible that is. It is 100% possible. There are schemes and ways that you can do these things, and none of them are good. But it's always possible. I think the brand reputation is what prevents that more than the legal structure.
How does it work in terms of, because you do make profit, so there's like 7.5 million of revenue.
Yep.
Some of it is profit. Where does it go?
Yeah, 100% is reinvested. the term nonprofit is super confusing and I hate it. It means something different in different countries. It means something in the UK, in Singapore, you have charities. In the US, those are all under the nonprofit umbrella. So there's not the right words. There's different words in different places, and it's very frustrating. But the most important thing that's common across nonprofits is they don't have share capital. So no one owns them. The business entity exists, and I'm a trustee, which means I can control it and steer it and decide what to do with it, but I don't own it. If I leave, I don't have anything to sell. I don't have any portion of the business that belongs to me. And so no one can buy it from me and I can't sell it. And that's important. I can pass my trusteeship to someone else, but it can't be bought or sold.
Isn't it quite kind of not strange? I struggle to pick up the right word, but you have to reinvest all your profit. So it's like, okay, we have an extra $1 million. Where do we put it? Is this the situation you...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so far we're a small company, right? So it's not like, damn, we've got all this extra money. What are we going to do with it?
But still, even like $100,000 and you need to put it somewhere.
Yeah, then I hire someone.
Hire someone.
Yeah.
So it's typically like you just hire more people.
Yeah, at the moment. But we don't really want to be more than about 50 people. I don't really want to run a giant company. It doesn't seem like fun to me. So we have an idea that we don't want to be more than 50-ish people. So at a certain point, this question is going to become more real. If we continue to do well, at a certain point, we will have maxed out payroll, which is the biggest expense any company has, and potentially have excess revenue that you don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
So
switching to for-profit. Now you know
exactly.
what to do.
OpenAI paved the way. No, it's fun to think about. A nonprofit can spend its money on anything that sits alongside its mission, or that its defined mission says that it will do. And for us, it's to foster journalism, open source technology, anything within that sphere. So if we get to a place of having done the insanely impossible, which is to create a nonprofit so profitable that it has too much money, then we can start redirecting those funds for furthering the mission, but not necessarily within the company. We could start doing grant funding for journalism. We could start doing investment in other companies within the Ghost ecosystem, perhaps, or within open source technology as a whole. We could start funding all of our dependencies, so the people who we depend on as open source projects, to help them be able to make that sustainable. As we can spend money as long as it's fulfilling the mission of the company. And as long as it's in line with those things. And I have a very long list of ideas of like what those things could be. For me, it's like one of the more fun things to think about.
Who decides the size of your salary?
At the moment, the two founders, so me and Hannah. And the way we benchmark that is we just look at what market rates are, and we try and stay well within that, like a long way within that, so that my idea has always been, if everyone gets the full accounting of Ghosts, like it gets leaked or it's public, there should be nothing we would ever be ashamed of. And that's why I run the company, just simply on that basis. But longer term, if we get to a size where it's appropriate, and I don't think we're 35 people right now, but if we get to a size where it makes sense in terms of revenue and number of people at the company, I would love to have an independent board of trustees that have oversight of the nonprofit and would decide things like that, compensation of the leadership team.
We have a final few minutes left. You said you have some side projects.
Yeah.
I noticed on LinkedIn one of them is, I think, a job platform.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
So can you name some other side projects just really quickly, and why did you decide to start them?
Well, that's the biggest one of my focus at the moment. I have others that are just in the kind of idea phase, but after doing hiring with Ghost for 10 years as a remote company, for better or for worse, when you have a remote job that pays well on a product that's interesting and respected within its market, you get a lot of job applications, like thousands and thousands and thousands. And every platform we've used for hiring sucks. It's terrible. It's designed for like enterprise recruiting, and it's also designed for like, it expects maybe 10 or 20 applications per position. It optimizes for all like these HR things specific to one country, which doesn't make any sense for a remote business. And so I just got so frustrated with the amount of time I spend and waste in these hiring platforms just in order to advertise positions for Ghost. And a lot of it is simple stuff, like the information about the applicant is below the fold, and I have to scroll every single time. So I have an idea that I can solve some of these things and just make my own life easier for hiring with Ghost. But I'm using Laravel and PHP to build it, which I love. It's so much fun. And if I can solve it for Ghost, maybe I can also offer it to other remote companies, because I think it's got to be a problem that more.
So when do you think you'll ship it?
This year. I'm going to try and get a prototype out this year. Yeah.
For profit.
Oh yeah, this is not a charitable project. This is a hiring platform for capitalism. It'll be a paid product for sure.
Okay, thanks a lot. This has been great. My first experience doing in-person podcast and your first experience.
Yeah, how was it?
I enjoyed it. Did you?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot for sticking till the very end of this episode. I guess that means you enjoyed it, right? Because if you did, I have to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, or maybe click the follow button if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify. Not sure if you know this, but subscriptions and follows are the strongest signal for these platforms to show this piece of content to more people. So I would really, really appreciate it if you would follow and subscribe. Thanks in advance, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.